Hi, my name is Dr. Brent Daigle from the Tift College of Education at Mercer University, and today I'm going to talk about some behavioral management ideas, some tips and strategies that we can all use in our classroom to help improve the academic, social, and behavioral outcomes for all of our students. One of the first things that we should be aware of is that what we consider to be appropriate behavior is a subjective construct. That the things that I allow in my classroom are very different than what other teachers may allow in their classroom. So that there's no universal code of what constitutes appropriate classroom behavior. We really have to know ourselves. If we think about the Greek phrase that stands above the portico of the Temple of Delphi, inscribed above this temple is the phrase, know thyself. And I think in the classroom sense, this is very much true, that our own personal beliefs, our own educational philosophies, even our own political philosophies and religious orientation and everything that makes us who we are is going to come out in the approach we use for behavior management. And so we really have to ask ourselves, what is our goal as a classroom teacher? Is my goal to be an authoritarian? Is it to be someone who gives information and I expect my students to have a certain role? Or is it a more collaborative approach? Is it an active learning environment where I value the contributions of my students and that, yes, at times it's going to be an informal and somewhat chaotic environment, but within that chaos that learning occurs. So we really have to understand ourselves as we get into the profession of teaching. And when we talk about classroom rules, there's a few things that I think should guide how we develop our rules in the classroom and the rules that we are governed by, if you will. One of the things I'd like to emphasize is that we don't get our rules from a school supply store. That we don't go to a dollar generic store and go to the school aid section and purchase a pre-made poster with classroom rules. And the reason I say that is because the behavior in my classroom is unique to my own environment. It's unique to the students that I have and the interactions that they have with me. And so that going to a store and purchasing a pre-made set of rules isn't necessarily going to apply to my own unique individual environment. One of the things that I did in the classroom is that I would have my students create their own rules, that they would agree on the rules that we were going to live by in our classroom, and then they would sign their name on the rules, and we would talk about that. We would talk about what constitutes on-task behavior, for example. Whatever rules that we came up with were the ones that we followed as a classroom, but we all agreed on the rules. I would explicitly teach the rules. I wouldn't just put it up on the wall at the beginning of the year and not refer to it unless that a student had a problem with it. For each lesson throughout the day, I would explicitly state, these are the rules that we abide by. We would generally have no more than 3 to 5 rules. If you have more than 5 rules, it gets to be cumbersome, and these rules should be made with positive statements. For example, we follow directions the first time they're given. Keep body parts, objects, and unkind words to yourself. Be in the proper place at the proper time. Use materials and equipment properly. Always walk in the building. Yet they emphasize the needs that we have in the classroom. The community of learners create their own rules to address the situation in my classroom. Hopefully, the rules in my classroom are designed to promote the success of all students. One of the things we need to consider is how behavior occurs. We know that behavior is learned. The best predictor of future behavior is relevant past behavior. We also know that behavior is reciprocal, that it builds off of the environment that we're in. It's a give and take. The interactions I have with my students, they respond to how I react to their behavior. We also know that inappropriate behavior does not just end. To extinguish or put an end to inappropriate behavior, we have to first replace that behavior with something more appropriate. Behavior is not universal, that what's accepted in one classroom is different than the behavior that's tolerated in a different classroom. We also need to consider the praise that we're given to our students. Learning is hindered when a student is presented with a contingent adversive consequence. Students learn better when they're being taught directly about their behavior and when they receive consistent positive feedback. Why do students misbehave? What is the function of their behavior? One possible reason may be that they simply do not understand how to meet the expectations in your classroom, that they're unaware of their behavior. They don't know what you expect, and they're behaving in a way that they think is appropriate. When we understand why students are misbehaving, we can then know the approaches and strategies we're going to do to replace it. One function of behavior may be medical. There may be factors that transcend the classroom, and that would explain the reason for their misbehavior. Another is a sense of powerlessness. Another reason may be the student's ability. We may notice that every time we get to math that a particular student is disruptive. The reason for that behavior is potentially to call attention away from the ability level, the skill level. We may have to change what we're doing to provide more opportunities for success in that particular subject area. If a student is not used to getting attention for the successes they have academic-wise or socially, often they will misbehave because at the end of the day, attention is attention. If a student is using inappropriate language, then the teacher has to stop and give the attention to the student and deal with that problem in the classroom. For that moment, all the eyes were on him or her. So we have to be aware of the function of behavior and the cause of behavior. One effective strategy to use in the classroom is a reinforcement response contingency for a particular group of students. The contingency can be evaluated on the performance of a specific individual, the average of 2 or 3 random students' performances, or even the average of the high and low students' performance. You need to first select the contingency, and then you need to let students know what you expect. What is the criterion? And then what are the consequences? An active, immediate feedback is an important part of this strategy so that the students know that they're meeting each part of the criterion that you've set for the group. Beat the clock is another effective way to encourage appropriate behavior and on-task behavior. We give a time frame, or we set the parameters for a particular activity, and we want the students to complete the activity in the allotted time. Those who do are rewarded with a particular token or reinforcement of some kind. We need to be aware of students with exceptionalities who may participate with this activity, where their skill level is behind, or that they just simply cannot physically meet the demands of beat the clock. Finally, a reward survey is a great way to elicit responses from your students to determine what it is that motivates them. We can use the data in this survey to determine the rewards that we give out in class. For example, some students may enjoy the raffle ticket type situation, where we give a raffle ticket on given intervals for good behavior, and at the end of the day that we have a raffle and we give away a certain prize. Some students may enjoy going to the prize box. Other students may enjoy things like having first choice in selecting work materials. For example, the crayons and the paper and the scissors for an activity. There's a great website I'd like to direct you to. It's called behavioradvisor.com. I'm not even certain who the owner of the website is, but it's a site that I used as a teacher to specific ideas related to behavioral problems. And this site gives a lot of information on unique behaviors and very specific behaviors, like tattling, out-of-seat behavior, arguing with the teacher, arguing with peers. It's a great site worth checking out. I want to thank you for your time today. Feel free to contact me anytime. My email is Daigle_BA@mercer.edu, and I appreciate you listening today. I'm Brent Daigle from the Tift College of Education at Mercer University.